psychology services, known across social media as DBpsychology. And this morning I'm going to be talking about forgiveness, self forgiveness, and how you can do that. Now, I have to give you a heads up on a couple of things. First off, it is a long blog. It took me a long time to write it as well. It's a tough subject for most people. It is a really tough subject. Any sort of forgiveness at all can be, really, oh, no, I don't even want to look at that. And then the thought of, oh, I have to forgive myself can be even tougher again. And the other thing is, I have to say that if you are a victim of child sexual abuse, if you have been a victim of domestic violence, sexual assault, if you have any sort of complex or form of PTSD at all, had any sort of major incidents in your life, then I would very, very strongly suggest that you reach out and do the work with a therapist. There's a certain level of self-help you can do, and a therapist will encourage you to do that, but you need the support of a therapist while doing this kind of work, particularly if, as I've highlighted, you've had any of those incidents in your life. I outline 8 steps. A lot of them are, the first 7 are all about working in the present moment and self-help and stabilising, giving you a good foundation and stabilising your life in the current moment before the last step, which is 8, which is all about the forgiveness work. And I believe that self-forgiveness is going to be your key. This is going to be your key, and it is very hard. Forgiveness in of itself, as I said, is a very hard subject for people to face. And most of the time, and I'll go through some of the struggles in a minute why we struggle with forgiveness, but most of the time it is a confusion around the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. When we can separate out the two, it really does help with the process of going through forgiveness. Forgiveness is only and always about you. Reconciliation involves the other person. And I will always say it, that is a personal choice. It has to be a personal choice. And as I said, forgiveness, self-forgiveness is going to be your key. Sometimes working through that, just the forgiveness part, nothing to do with reconciliation, nothing to do with contacting the other person, and working through forgiving yourself can be enough to be able to let go of the past. It can be enough to bring you serenity in your current life, and for you to, as I said, let go of the past. Now, letting go, and this is another confusion people have, letting go does not mean you are forgetting, and it doesn't mean you've reconciled with the other person. And I'll go through the struggles now in a minute, but that is I think another misconception. People think, oh, when I let it go, it's going to lessen what they did, and it doesn't. That is not what this is about, and that's not what forgiveness is about. That's reconciliation. That's what I mean by defining the two, separating them out and defining the two. So why do we struggle? We can get, as I said, we can get caught up in the idea between what is forgiveness and what is reconciliation. And that really has to be our first clue, if we can separate it out and realising that forgiveness has got nothing to do with the other person. It is definitely all about you. The second reason we can get caught up is we get caught up in the emotions of it. Very justifiable emotions. We are angry, we can feel shame and guilt, and as I said, these are very justifiable emotions. We are entitled to our emotions, all our emotions, no matter what they are, and we need to work through them. The only thing that happens there is we can get caught up in an emotion, and that ties us to the past, and it takes away our power. So this is a struggle for a lot of people when, those two in themselves, number one, I just mentioned about the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation, and this thing, the second one about being caught up in your emotions, they're very strong. They are very strong, and they keep you caught and linked with the past. So just even those two alone can keep you caught up in the past. Number three is that, if we go through forgiveness work, that it will justify what happened. Absolutely not. That's the whole point. It's not reconciliation. And we're taking that out. What the other person did was completely wrong. Yes, it is their fault. And no, it will not justify the pain that they caused. It doesn't. It certainly doesn't. Number four reason we struggle is we're not ready to grieve what has happened, and we do have to grieve it out. We do have to face it, and we have to grieve it out. Number five is that we can worry that it'll make us more vulnerable again. It's very scary. Number six is that it's a very scary thing to do, that we have to face what is happening, and so that ties in with number five, which is we feel very vulnerable. We can feel very, very vulnerable. Number eight is it can give us a false sense of control in our lives. So when we don't actually go and grieve it out, when we don't do, when we don't have to face our vulnerabilities, when we feel very scared about it, we want to hold on to a sense of control in our lives. And that, I'm afraid, can be a very false sense of control. And I'll come on to those reasons in a minute when I talk about the steps to forgiveness. And people are not going to like what I'm going to say next, but it can be a comfort zone to hang on to the victim, to hang on to the survivor. It can be a comfort zone, but only you, the person involved, can decide to move out of that. No one, absolutely no one, should tell you when you're ready excuse me, when you're ready to move on. Only you can decide that, nobody else. And then that brings me on to the last reason we tend to struggle is we're not ready to change our relationship with the past. It can be very hard. As I said, it can be we want to hold on tightly to it because it has become a part of our identity, and that is hard to actually now step away from that and to change our identity. And as I said, for me, I firmly believe that self-forgiveness is the key to moving through that. And how do we do that? Now, most of these steps and how you do this is all about looking at your current life. And why I want to do that, and why I say to people, look at your current life the way it is now. It is about establishing a stabilized environment and a baseline that you can move up from, that you have a sense of empowerment, a sense of control in your current life, so then you can look at the past. So step one, take back control of your own life. So that's really, it's just about, gaining that power back, taking over a sense of control, and start setting boundaries. So the first step would be to look at your why. Why do I want to start this work? Why do I ever want to do this? Your why is going to lead you to your serenity. It's going to lead you to letting go. Because knowing your why, on the days that are darker and on the days that you're really struggling, your why will keep you going. When the motivation and the willpower and all you want to do is pull the covers over your head, understanding why you want to move to serenity will keep you going. And it's empowering to know that why I want to do this right now. And as I said, it's establishing your first boundary, and it's taking back control. The second one is, and I will always say it with any kind of work or anybody at all, is to make sure you're looking after yourself. And that means you're setting a foundation of looking after yourself. Yes, doing your basic self-care. That's why I called my book The Building Blocks of Self-Care, because it is, you're laying the self-care part, and that's only a short amount of work, is, your basics are your foundation in the house called you. You're setting your boundaries. You're starting now to set boundaries, and I'm going to talk about those in the next few steps, with yourself and with other people. And then you know what that looks like. You know what setting a boundary looks like and what a healthy boundary looks like. And I've talked about setting healthy boundaries and what unhealthy boundaries are before. There is blogs and videos on that, and there is a checklist which you can sign up for on my website. Number 3 would be to review what's going on currently in your life. Now, this is just a review. It's not about doing anything. It's not about taking action. These are small steps that we take. So we're reviewing what's going on in our life. And why do we do that? Because more than often, and this is why I'm talking about the false sense of control. If we have been had a boundary violated in some way in the past, we are more likely to have boundaries violated in the present. We're more likely to have skewed boundaries. So for now, all you have to do is review your priorities, what you're doing, for whom. That's all you're doing. You're just writing it all out and you're doing that review. And again, I talk about that before, and I do have a free handout about that again on the resources page if you go and look at my website. Number 4 then is about setting the boundaries. Number 4 is about reviewing that list that you've just written out. You could do it over a number of months. You don't have to do it very quickly. And what that means then is you're now starting to empower yourself. You're now starting to really take control of your day-to-day life and decide what you do and for whom. So in that review, you will delete things, and that could include deleting people. And I've talked about deleting negative people and dealing with negative people. I did a video recently on that. And then it means also delegating. Do I need to ask for help? Do I need to delegate something? Or you hand it back. If it is somebody else's responsibility, you simply hand it back to them. They're adults. They know how to do this. They're quite capable of doing it. And please don't feel guilty about deleting or handing back stuff or delegating, because these people, and I've said it before, toxic or negative people, they'll have somebody else to step into the breach and prop them up again. They will. And then you get to decide what's left on the list should really be your responsibility and only your responsibility. But you can do a further review. Do I want this as a responsibility? Is this still, part of my wants, needs and desires? And a lot of the time when we've had boundary violations and we've had incidents, something happened to us in the past, we don't know who we are. We don't know what our real needs, wants and desires are. We have an awful lot of time done people pleasing in order to keep the peace as well, and we take on others' wants, needs and desires and adopt them as our own, when in fact they're not ours. So that is something then we can look at. Number 5 then is about communication skills. Now the thing about 4, 5 and 6, you could do these interlinked. They're interlinked. They're not not a step 4, 5 and 6. They are interlinked. We look at our communication skills, and perhaps you have to look at that before you do step 4, which is setting the boundaries. So again, this is all about empowering yourself, taking back control and setting a boundary. So how do I communicate with other people? And I'm not just talking about verbal communication, I'm also talking about body language and how we dress, and I'll come on to those in a minute. But are you able to ask for what you want? Are you able to ask for your wants, your needs, desires? Are you able to ask for help? Are you using your I statements? Are you doing active listening? How do you communicate when you're angry? And I've talked about these before, and there is a link out in this week's blog to another blog all about that, communicating while you're angry and communicating with others. So then how do you use your body language? And one of the simple ways I can illustrate how we monitor and how we use our body language is and a lot of people can see this when we walk around, or even when we're sitting at our desk, we are constantly putting our chin down on our chest. But if you think about this, when you do this, when you go into this position or you start looking down like this is a collapsed mode. And what I mean by the collapsed mode is it ties back into the fight, fright or flight mode. When we collapse like that, we're going into the freeze or fright mode, and it signals to our body that we're going to collapse, that we are a victim and we're going to go down. So even starting to recognize that holding your shoulders up, holding your chin, not up in the air, but just level, making eye contact and putting back your shoulders, pulling them down, is much more of an empowering position. It's more like the fight position that we would take if we were angry. We puff out our chest. We're standing up for ourselves, and that's what that signals to the brain and the body. So have a think about that. Even the way we dress, is it the way we want to dress? Do we feel comfortable? That is very, very important. Are we feeling empowered by the way we dress? It's something simple, and sometimes we don't even think about it, but it is, part of how we communicate with people. Number 6 then is to review your emotional health. How, what's going on in your life in terms of emotionally, your head, your heart, your body, your soul, and how you respond now can always, it's always dictated by the past. So is that a healthy way? Is that influencing you in a healthy way or not? Now I have about 10 questions on the blog this week that can help you with that, and the link is in the description below. Number 7 is building positives in the now. So again, we can do this while we're doing 4, 5 and 6, or even 3, 4, 5 and 6. We can start to look at the positives. And why do we want to do that? Because the negativity from the past becomes overwhelming, and it overwhelms and it pushes out any current positives that we have in our lives. We simply don't see the positives that we have. We simply don't, we ignore the achievements, we ignore reaching goals, even if they're small wins, we don't acknowledge them, we don't celebrate them, and we need to do that. We need to look at our gratitude, and I've said it before, gratitude is one of the quickest ways we can boost our mental health. It also lasts a lot longer when we do it. And I do have a whole blog and a video on gratitude on the website at www.DeborahByrnePsychologyServices.com. Do go and check it out. So as I said, those first 7 steps are all about taking back control of the current moment. It's about stabilizing your current life. It's about feeling more empowered. Before we ever get to any sort of forgiveness work, we have done all that. We've given ourselves a really good, strong foundation, and it is only based on that can we move forward into forgiveness work, forgiveness of ourselves and forgiveness of anybody else, if we choose to do that. So doing forgiveness work, we basically write out a list of everybody, and I mean every little incident that is still nagging you in your head, is still causing you anger, or we feel shame around it, or we feel guilt about it, or everything needs to come out now. All that list of events and people need to come out. Even the smallest ones, we need to do that. And what we need to do is put ourselves right at the top. We are number 1 here on this list. For the first time in our lives, we are going to put ourselves number 1. Then we need to really reread the list, and you start to take the smallest or easiest event or person first, and how they connect to you. How do you feel about this person? How did you feel? It's all about you, how you felt, and how you want to work through forgiving yourself surrounding that. If you then want to move on, as I said, to working with regards to the other person, you can do that. Step 4 in this sequence on number 8, I have a list of questions that you can ask yourself. Then step 5, I simply say to you, write a letter to that person. Again, you're not meeting that person. It doesn't matter if they're still in your life. It doesn't matter if they're dead. It doesn't matter if they're gone. This is about you doing the work for you to forgive yourself, to empower yourself to take back control of your life. So you write the letter and you burn it, and you may need to do that quite a number of times depending on the event that happened. And then you write a letter to yourself. So the things you need to really remember for all those steps in number 8 is that you have to be kind to yourself. beating yourself up, berating yourself is not it's not really conducive to self-forgiveness. It's not empowering. That's not about taking back control of your life. That's just feeding the cycle of what happened in the past. And that is why I stress about going and getting professional help if you need it. You also have to be very aware, and I highlight this in the blog, that sometimes these people are either dead, therefore we can never get closure with them, but you can if you do the work. And if that's the case, I do stress that you need to get professional help. If this person is very dangerous, and you know they're dangerous, of course you're never going to go and approach them. You're never going to try and do any sort of reconciliation. And absolutely, I would never ever tell somebody to go and do that. Because none of what I have said above, none of it is about approaching the other person. It's not about reconciling with them. It's not about doing anything to do with them. It's always about you. So as I said at the start, if you are struggling with child sexual abuse, domestic violence, sexual assault, any sort of assault, any sort of major event, childhood neglect or abuse, you really need to be talking to a therapist and getting the support of a therapist. That is what the therapist role is. It's to support you as you do the work. It isn't about them telling you what to do. It is about them supporting you while the work is being done. Now, it was such a long blog, and I had a long think about it. There is such an amount of work involved that I went and I did an entire worksheet about it. I've put the blog in there, and the worksheets are at the end. So if you need them, they're on my resource page. It's at www.DBpsychologyservices.com/resources. Go and have a look at it. You can download it. It's free. It's down among the free resources, so go get them while you can, because they will be getting locked up very soon. There's a lot of resources in there, negative thinking and all sorts of stuff in there that you could just at the moment you just click and download. But as I said, come the summer, they're all going into a subscription only library, so if you want them, go get them now. And those worksheets for this work, self-forgiveness, is in there. Also just wanted to highlight the Less Stress More Success group for mums, which has just started. So I would hope that if you're a mum and you'd like to join us, do come along. I'll put the link in the description, and I'd love to see a few more mums coming in there. And also don't forget, I do talk about this work, and I do go through all the building blocks about setting boundaries, about getting more self-confident. In my book, The Building Blocks of Self-Care, which is available on my website, it's €5, so it's not that dear, and it has tons of worksheets in there, so you can do the work by yourself if you want to, in the privacy of your own home. So do check that out. And as always, hi Deirdre. Okay, we're having some problems, so hopefully it's not. This video has gone out. So just to say to you, thank you all for listening. Hi Deirdre, and thank you. So we're having problems with Facebook settings, she says. Okay, I'll check that out. So thank you all for listening, and thank you to everybody who watches in replay. And don't forget the free worksheets that go along with this video and the blog, the original blog. And I will see you all again next Saturday. And this Monday, it's all about relationships and working from home as a couple currently with the COVID situation. And I have a worksheet for that as well, so do check that out on Monday, and next Saturday morning I'll see you then. Thank you all for listening.